Donald Trump and the other defendants have committed persistent and repeated fraud. Last week, we proved that in our motion for summary judgment. Today, we will prove our other claims. My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law. And it is my responsibility and my duty and my job to enforce it. The law is both powerful and fragile. And today in court, we will prove our case.
1 year later.
Beneath all these questions, the question of mission creep has 6312 morphed into something that it was not meant to do.
All of the defendants repeatedly violated.
Ms. Vail, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners?
And it was using...
I'm sorry, but what's being described sounds an awful lot like a potential commercial dispute between private actors.
I mean, you've got two really sophisticated parties in which no one lost any money. The case that you cite involved where there was damage to consumers, damage to the marketplace. You've got a scheme to get unsophisticated consumers to take out home loans. You got a collapse of Lehman Brothers. You don't have anything like that here.
And that's something you must address, because there has to be some limitation on what the Attorney General can do in interfering in these private transactions, as Justice Friedman said, that where people don't claim harm. So what is the limiting principle? The immense penalty in this case is troubling.
An appeals court has just thrown out President Donald Trump's $364 million civil fraud penalty. This just happened. It is a developing story. We're getting a lot more information, a big news story for the day. We're going to bring you more details as we get them. This just in.
Boy, 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 boy. So we got to talk about what appears to be a massive, massive, massive W for President Trump when it comes to the attempt by Trump deranged New York Attorney General Letitia James to bankrupt him, right? To essentially force him to sell his properties and for the state to confiscate his properties based off her bogus civil fraud case against him that just got thrown out. Or put it this way, the penalty, the $350+ million fine, again, which is designed to try to bankrupt the president, was just thrown out by the appeals court. Again, as you guys saw at the beginning of this video, the appeals court was pretty skeptical about Letitia James and her case, especially the penalty, right? The penalty that was imposed on President Trump was found to be excessive, okay? And this is why they basically threw out that penalty. And I want to react to MSNBC's, now known as MS Now, so BS Now. I want to react to some BS Now on this penalty, right? Because we already know there's a whole lot of cope here from BS Now, right? Over Letitia James suffering this humiliating defeat. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Starting with the breaking news we ended last hour with, a New York appeals court has thrown out a massive civil fraud penalty against President Trump, a total that exceeded $500 million. They're calling that penalty excessive. Joining us now, NBC News legal Avalos and NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grumbach. Danny, break down this ruling for us.
Well, it's a lengthy ruling, and all the judges disagreed on their analysis, but they agreed on one final decision, which was that this judgment against Trump was a fine within the Eighth Amendment prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment and excessive fines. And in addition, it was punitive and it was excessive. That's really the conclusion. They concluded that because this was a punitive measure because there weren't any victims who were compensated. It was just a judgment against the company and against Trump. So the court here concluded, with a lot of disagreement among them, but did conclude that this was an excessive fine within the meaning of the Constitution's Eighth Amendment.
Yeah, so Letitia James basically tried to violate his constitutional rights with this penalty that the judge agreed upon, right? Judge Aragon agreed upon this penalty against President Trump, right? And I think everybody kind of knew that this was crazy, right? I remember Kevin O'Leary, when this was happening, how he would go on national TV and rage against just how anti-capitalistic this actually is, right? When you talk about the state being weaponized to go after a political opponent to try to bankrupt his business, It's like, well, why would anybody want to do business in New York, right? If they know that some deranged attorney general who disagrees with their politics may weaponize the state and try to put them out of business based off, in this case, President Trump doing what businessmen do, right? In regards to trying to, get good business deals, right? And to get favorable loans, right, from banks, in which this case, the bank did their own due diligence, right? There was really no harm, no foul. The banks got paid back. It's not like President Trump defrauded taxpayers, okay, which is what we got to talk about when it comes to Letitia James and the criminal investigation that she's facing, okay? You talk about defrauding taxpayers. There is a chance that Letitia James could land up in jail, right? Which is what I want to see, right? I want to see her arrested and thrown in prison, okay? That would really, really make me happy, okay? It would make me very, very, very happy to see that, especially now that the New York Appeals Court has basically thrown out this penalty. We need to investigate why is it that Letitia James tried to impose a penalty like this in the first place, and why did the woke judge Erdogan go along with it, right? That is what we got to have a conversation about. That is what we need to be investigating here.
When you say that this was a lengthy ruling, we're talking to the tune of more than 300 pages. So we know that folks are going through it still. But Gary, give us a refresher of this case. Viewers are seeing on the screen from the time of the trial. How did we get here?
So you'll remember that Donald Trump was accused of kind of plussing up how much money he actually was worth and how much money the things he owned were actually worth. He tripled the size of his penthouse in documents to some of these financial lenders and brokers. You just can't do that. Yeah. And he was given a $300 million fine that has been plussed to $500 million because of interest. And that was 11 months ago now. And so this is a very significant win for Donald Trump. And it's also for his sons, because it was paused for his sons as well. So the entire Trump family is impacted by this. But I do want to get to a point that Danny was talking about, how everyone sort of had different opinions when they released this opinion. The appeals court said, one of them said, penalties are supposed to stop people from doing things. They're concerned these individuals will reoffend, and it's getting rid of the penalty. Perhaps not the best idea here.
And for viewers, I think it's important for us to remind them there were certain lawsuits that were against the Trump organization. This is one of the suits that falls in that category. And interestingly, Danny, it was brought by the Attorney General of New York, Tish James. And right now, you've sort of got this subplot happening where the Trump Department of Justice now has subpoenaed Tish James for basically the records related to this lawsuit. One of the promises that they made on the campaign trail was, okay, investigate the investigators. This is certainly an example of that. Abby Lowell, Tish James's attorney, said that this is blatant political retribution. But talk about that bookend here that is new now that the administration is Trump's again.
Yeah. Again, it's so hilarious to me how Letitia James is crying out, talking about political retribution, when that's what she was engaged in, right? She was engaged in that against Trump, because she literally campaigned on going after Trump. And again, this penalty being wiped away really shows you how obvious it was that that's what she was doing, right? She was trying her best to essentially bankrupt the president by weaponizing the state, okay? That's what she was doing. So, it's just funny to me how BS now wants to frame this conversation, when the real framing here should be about whether or not the court wiping out this penalty supports the idea that, again, Letitia James was doing this for political reasons, right? Was this a political witch hunt from Letitia James? That is the real question that they should be asking on BS now.
There's no question this decision by the appellate division will embolden Trump and maybe the DOJ, but it's not really a true exoneration. What the court concluded, although the judges were somewhat fractured, very fractured, was that the defendants were liable. It's just that the punishment itself was excessive. Now, this may be a distinction without a difference to Trump's supporters, but it is an important point to be made. At least spiritually, Trump probably feels vindicated, because certainly in all of our minds, being found liable but having the actual penalty removed feels like a win. But the court did conclude that the liability determination was proper and that the Attorney General had the authority to bring this cause of action under the statute.
Yeah, so here's the thing. It is a W. It's a huge W. And President Trump, they can continue to challenge the other part of it, right? About whether or not he's actually liable, okay? But regardless, at least as of right now, I think what everybody agrees on is the fact that, hey, that penalty was excessive, okay, for the case that Letitia James brought against the president and the Trump organization. Yeah, she was clearly trying to use the state, to weaponize the state to bankrupt the president, to levy a penalty so large that, you know, even the New York appeals court said, nah, this is too much. This is crazy, right? For basically a victimless incident, right? A victimless transaction. The bank got paid back. They made money. The Trump organization everybody made money. The bank did their own due diligence, right? They had an idea of how much the properties were worth, okay? And, you know, they made the loan based off, again, their own calculations and their own research and what, you know, they did. And ultimately it worked out. So again, a penalty like that is just crazy. But again, people got to call into question, why even pursue a penalty like that? Why would a judge go along with a penalty like that? Why would they all go along with it? Again, that's the question that really should be asked here. So with that being said, the president still can appeal whether or not he should be found liable. Okay. But as of this point, the penalty has been thrown out, and I'm sure that Letitia James will probably try to have it reimposed, right? I mean, so it's definitely not over, but as of right now, President Trump has just scored a big W, at the very least until further appeals, okay, which definitely are going to happen. So we'll see, right? I think moving forward, this is more fuel for the fire to investigate Letitia James. And let's hope that she's held accountable, because you're not allowed to weaponize your office against your political opponents. And just because you fail, right, just because you fail to throw them in jail or to bankrupt them, that doesn't mean that you're allowed to get away with it. Doesn't mean that we should, you know, turn the other cheek and just say, nah, we're good. We're going to let you slide. No, that's not how it works. We don't let you slide, right? We don't play like that. That's not us, okay? We don't roll like that, right? So ultimately today, she has to be held accountable for her crimes, right? Because ultimately today, nobody's above the law. Nobody is above the law. This is what she said. This is what Shifty Schiff said. And he knows what's up, right? He knows what's coming, because he has prepared a legal defense fund, right? AKA he's trying to raise money. He's trying to grift in order to prepare for what he knows is about to happen. The accountability, the hand of justice is about to come down swiftly on these Democrats.
It looks like Adam Schiff really did a bad thing. They have him. Now, let's see what happens. It's not up to me. It's not up to, I stay out of it purposely. But it's mortgage loan fraud. It's a big deal. He defrauded banks and insurance companies and the federal government.
Is a top senator in hot water. Senator Adam Schiff is accused of mortgage fraud. President Trump publicly accused Schiff this summer of lying about his primary residence to get a cheaper mortgage. Schiff is preparing for a legal battle. He's created a legal defense fund amid a Justice Department investigation. Schiff claims Trump is weaponizing the government against him. His spokesperson says the fund will help him fight back against baseless smears. Schiff's attorney calls the investigation an abuse of power. Meanwhile, the special attorney on the case says there's more dirt on Schiff that goes beyond potentially lying on forms.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. More dirt on Schiff, more dirt on Letitia James. This is just the beginning. Get your popcorn ready, okay? Letitia James and Adam Schiff and other Democrats are in for a wild ride, because, again, they said that nobody is above the law, and they're about to find out the hard way. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.